How's it going tonight? Well, I'd like to talk to everybody tonight about something very important that I've been noticing. But I don't know if anybody quite has the words for it. So I'm going to try my best to correlate and distill this whole thing into something concise and easily understandable. There's this feeling in the air right now like something is deeply wrong. You know, you have all this Epstein stuff, you have this war in the Middle East. It's deeper than just politically wrong. Not just, oh, the gas is going up again. Not just the job market sucks and nobody can find work. And not only people arguing online like crackheads in a Walmart parking lot. I mean, there's something deeper at work here. I mean, civilizationally wrong. Like, we're standing in the ruins of a future that should have happened. And most people don't even realize that they're standing in the ruins. They think it's just normal life. They think this is just how history goes. They think, well, I guess war over oil, job shortages, inflation, societal fragmentation, and everybody being at each other's throats is just the way the world works. No, that is not just the way the world works. That is a result of decisions. That is a result of incentives over a long period of time. That is a result of a species, and especially a country like America, having a staircase right in front of it and stepping off. Because I think we stepped off a stairway to heaven, literally, and walked right down into an oil addiction cave of illusions. And now that cave is collapsing in on us. And we don't know what to do except fight World War III. That's stupid. I think it's time we look back and face the brutal part. We did not lose the future because we were too stupid to imagine it. We lost it after we already touched it. We split the atom. We built reactors. Reactors that would free us from oil addiction, from this stupid game and a race to the bottom. We reached orbit. We landed on the moon. We tested nuclear rockets. We sketched out space settlements and cities. We made TV shows about it that inspired people to build real starships and invent real warp drives like Miguel Alcubierre, the Mexican physicist. That led to real experiments creating microscopic warp bubbles, doing something with the Casimir effect. They figured out if we had fusion that we might be able to break the light barrier. We built a giant industrial civilization capable of staggering feats of engineering. And somewhere along the line, we looked at all that possibility and said, actually, you know what would be better? Traffic, shopping malls, financialization and debt, usury, cheap crap on boats coming from all over the world, slave labor in these other nations we buy everything from, child labor, making electronics and nobody bats an eye, and fighting forever over petroleum, dinosaur juice. That's one hell of a species level fumble, don't you think? It's like being handed the Excalibur and trading it all for a rewards card at a gas station. And I'm not saying that to be theatrical. I literally mean that. Like, we could have been astronauts, fusion engineers, because the world we're watching shake up right now with war, with oil, with choke points, with job insecurity, with no future. Like, where are we going? Like Wally, we're going to sit in hover chairs with toilets in them with this VR interface, and we're so fat we can't get out of our chairs and we have no muscle mass. People losing their homes. Families wondering how the hell they're going to feed their kids. We could have had, rooftop gardens. What happened to a chicken in every pot? It seems like we're also addicted to emergency, like I was talking about in a earlier video I made exploring the concept of Newman lock. This world is built on old, stupid choices. This didn't just happen. We built this fragility, and we rejected sovereignty on purpose. We were sold this stupid idea and we bought it. I think it's time to explore the return policy, because the Strait of Hormuz still carries an enormous share of global oil traffic, which means modern civilization is still frighteningly vulnerable to conflict in one narrow maritime choke point. One little spot can bring the world to its knees. And we think this is a good idea in light of nuclear power and space travel, when we could have mined asteroids and not fought over conflict minerals. There would be no conflict. People would have to come to us to buy the minerals because we got them from space. Petroleum still dominates the United States transportation energy by a huge margin even now. This means trucks, freight, farming, logistics, food distribution, all of it is still hooked into the same vulnerable system by design. So when people act shocked that everything feels brittle, I'm like, shocked? What did you think was going to happen? What do you think happens when you build a civilization whose blood supply runs through a war-prone artery? What do you think happens when you make people dependent on fuel systems that they do not control? Why is that not a national security issue? Why has it never been? Why weren't we interested in creating manufacturing systems that we own and supply chains that we can snap that can't snap because one part of the world caught fire? What do you think happens when sovereignty becomes a slogan instead of an engineering project, a logistical doctrine? That's the thing I want people to understand. That sovereignty is not a fucking bumper sticker. It's not a chant. It's not a song. It's not chest thumping. It's not cosplay patriotism. It's work and understanding and distillation of the facts. Sovereignty is energy. It's machine tools. Sovereignty is metallurgy. It's understanding freight and logistics. Sovereignty is a grid that works for us. It's domestic production, jobs for people that live here. Sovereignty is not having your civilization kneel before every tanker route and every unstable region on Earth. That's what sovereignty is. And if a nation does not build that, then all its flags and slogans are just decorative drapery over dependency, learned helplessness. A type of weaponized incompetence. Oh, we can't do it. We need the oil. We've got to have the oil. Nuclear's too scary. Scarier than World War III? Okay, that's a load of bullshit. Now let's go back, because people need to understand just how real the lost future actually was. The United States didn't merely dream about nuclear power. It's not a fantasy. It built a huge fleet of naval vessels. Most of the operating U.S. nuclear capacity that exists in 2017 came online between 1970 and 1990. That means the country had already proven it could build nuclear at a massive scale, but only for the military. Why not the public sector? The country also didn't just dream about space. We went to the moon in 1969. And Apollo 17 was the last moon landing in 1972. Never went back. NASA created a experimental nuclear rocket called NERVA. NERVA was a nuclear rocket program that achieved major engine test milestones before it was canceled in the early 1970s without ever flying. They were going to really fly a nuclear rocket, get rid of fossil fuels or the hydrazine. Then you had serious NASA studies in the 1970s that were already looking at space settlements using extraterrestrial materials for long-term expansion, to live there permanently and to work there. Let that sink in a minute. What if your dad would have been a space miner instead of a coal miner? What if your mom would have been a nuclear physicist working at the local plant down the road? We had it. We had nuclear power. We had the moon landings. We had momentum. We had nuclear rocket development, early space settlement thinking, giant industrial workforce dedicated to it, and a public memory of what real national mobilization looks like. We don't know what the hell that looks like. We've never seen that. The door was open. And that's why this topic hits me so fucking hard. Because it's not just a story of failing to invent. It's a story of failing to continue up the stairway to heaven. We had the beginning of an atomic civilization. Not something that was just some gimmick or some cool little topic in popular mechanics. We had the beginning of a frontier civilization to explore the unknown, to see what's out there, to plunder its treasure and bring it back to Earth to make it better. We had the beginning of an electrified civilization. Like, we could have electrified all the rails and had trains be 4 times wider, carry 10 times as much freight powered by nuclear reactors, it would have been easy. And then we just stopped. We just stopped believing in ourselves in the future. Comfort, convenience, quarterly returns, cheap imports, managed decline dressed up as pragmatism. And look, I get it. People are going to say nuclear has risks. Yeah, it had risks. So does everything. So does depending on oil like this and these choke points. The question is never, is there risk? The question is, what kind of risk buys what kind of future? And sorry, but not sorry, but I will not take the risk of a civilization learning how to safely handle nuclear power over a certainty of war-driven oil, dependence on any day of the week. Any day. The aftermath of 3 Mile Island led to these major changes in training, emergency planning, and oversight. In other words, the answer to nuclear danger was better engineering and better institutions, not surrendering the future and crawling back into fuel addiction. Because what was the alternative? The alternative was this: build your civilization around oil, let transport stay overwhelmingly petroleum based, let your freight system remain hostage to fuel stocks, let your cities spread outward into dependency, let your manufacturing slowly hollow out, and let your young people grow up in a country that remembers how to consume but forgets to build. And then we're going to act all surprised when the system starts wheezing and shaking. That's where we're at right now. And it's not just the side of war in this. It's the job side too. Because people keep hearing these abstract narratives from on high. The economy is resilient. Okay, is it? The labor market is cooling. What a load of shit. Openings remain available. Yeah, what, to flip burgers? Tell that to the guy into a bus because he can't make his mortgage payment. Tell that to the family staring at the kitchen table trying to figure out which bill gets paid and which one gets sacrificed to the gods of late fees. You tell that to people who have sent out 50, 100 applications and are getting ghosted by reality itself because of the AI takeover. The labor market has weakened in a way that is very real at the ground level. It's softening. It's collapsing. In February 2026, this year, payrolls fell like a rock. Long-term unemployment rose over the prior year, and job openings were down sharply from a year earlier from all the AI taking people's jobs. The unemployment rate has also been running way above the national level, and broader unemployment remains a very real problem. So no, people are not crazy. This is not all in people's heads. This is not just bad vibes. This is structural weakness and incompetent leadership for nearly a century. If you combine labor market weakness with oil vulnerability, with housing pressure, with debt pressure, with cultural fragmentation, with a zero long-range national mission, yeah, Yeah, people are going to feel like the floor is moving under them, okay? Because it is. You know what's really maddening about all this? It connects back to the staircase we stepped off of. We could have stopped this. We could have had a much, much better future here together. Because a nation that stays committed to energy sovereignty, industrial sovereignty, and frontier science does not produce the same social psychology. It is a sovereign nation that actually has hope and still knows how to dream and how to build that dream. Civilization like that produces builders. It produces nuclear operators, machinists, reactor technicians, rail engineers, propulsion specialists, metallurgists, orbital fabricators for shipyards, systems planners for all this complex stuff, space miners, shuttle pilots, moon welders, Martian coders, and material scientists. It produces people that are gainfully employed, that have meaningful work that they're proud to talk about. Produces a culture where people feel needed and not like they're just a number, another cog in the machine. They've got the picture up on the wall along with their achievements. Something they and everybody else around them can be proud of. And that matters more than people realize. A civilization collapses spiritually long before it collapses physically. When people stop feeling like they have a role in a great work. You know, they just recently put the cap on the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, Anton Gaudi's last great project of a grand cathedral. And it's not a Gothic cathedral. It's an Art Nouveau cathedral. Its pillars are made of stone trees that hold up the entire structure. Stained glass spills colorful light all throughout it, and it looks like a magical enchanted forest where you do feel like you're closer to God. Imagine the pride those people feel when they put that cap on it earlier this month. A continuation of hundreds of years of work and dedication that everybody can see from all over the city and walk in and hear its songs. That's what people are starving for. Not just jobs. Yes, jobs are good, but also meaning, direction, a mission together that helps everybody. That isn't politically controversial, culturally clashing. The sense that all this effort is building towards something greater than just survival inside of a decaying machine. Instead, what have we given people? A bunch of fucking fake email job portals? An economy where you need 5 years of experience to get an entry-level job and the privilege of getting underpaid? The fucking endless feed of sex, war, slop, and political theater, red versus blue, a housing market that treats stability like an luxury item, a national mythology that says, dream big, while the actual system whispers, please lower your expectations, sir, and become a constant subscription zombie. It's not civilization. That's sedation. And I think people know it. I think that's why so many people are cracked open right now, losing their minds on the internet. It's not because they're weak. because at some level they can feel the lie on both sides of red and blue. They can feel that this species was meant for more than scrambling over scraps in an algorithmic cage, while oil traders and geopolitical market jerks are steering the wheel. They're steering the wheel of history around. We were meant for more than this. Now, I want to be careful here. This is not me saying, oh, yes, if only we built some nuclear reactors, we'd all be living on Mars with robot servants and nobody would ever fight again. No, that is not what I'm saying. Human beings would still be human beings. There would still be greed. There would still be power struggles. There would still be folly, corruption, vanity, fear. But the architecture matters. And the architecture we choose amplifies our worst tendencies. Oil choke points amplify militarism. Fragile supply chains amplify panic. Hollowed out industry amplifies helplessness. Short-term finance amplifies cowardice. A civilization that cannot think past the next quarter cannot build the next century or a cathedral. And that's the heart of it. This is not only a technical failure, it was a moral failure of time horizons, of deadlines for our species. We chose the lower road because it paid faster. This is the game theory tragedy of it. I am a recent student of Professor Zhang. If you haven't checked his channel out, please check it out. He's doing a great analysis on all of this stuff about what's going on, how it's falling apart, strictly using game theory to expose the shadowy hands at play, which I think is effective because we don't have direct evidence of these nasty moves, but we can game theory it out. So it's not just one villain. It's not one smoke-filled room like that Fallout scene where they just kind of agree to nuke the world. It's not one perfect conspiracy. It's like a tendency. A board full of actors that are each rewarded for taking the lower road. The road oil auto complex, it required a lot of oil to build the roads, where we could have come up with another material. A short horizon capital class that wants ribbon cuttings faster than real infrastructure maturing. A public fear of ecosystems that can tolerate endless petro war but panic at controlled atomic risk. The comfort merchants who profit from dependency so long as the shelves stay stocked, with no guarantee that they can do it in the future. Just this week, no one had to gather and say, let's deny mankind the stars. They just had to keep choosing the smaller thing. And they did. Over and over and over and over. Highways got massive sustained commitment. The interstate system received a 90% federal funding share under the 1956 Act. Meanwhile, transportation stayed overwhelmingly petroleum-based, well into the nuclear age. And electrification never received the same continental scale seriousness. That's how a species can lose the future without announcing it. You just keep funding the cave and the shadows, dancing on the walls. You keep making the cave more comfortable. Put a couch in there, a lamp, maybe a nice television set, better screens in the cave, faster delivery from DoorDash to the cave, where you don't have to leave. 1,000 flavors of entertainment will keep you in there. And because the cave gets more stimulating, we think we're getting better and better and better as time goes on. And people stop asking why they're underground and there's no light. That to me is the oil addiction cave of illusions. Our version of Plato's cave. It's not just physical oil. It's a whole dependency pattern. A mindset that says, don't build too far ahead, kid. Don't think too big. Keep your feet on the ground. Don't standardize greatness. Don't create infrastructure that might liberate people from scarcity. We'll lose money. And that'll piss off our shareholders. Just manage the cave. Decorate the cave. Throw them a pizza party. Argue in the cave. Elect cave managers. Consume in the cave. Goon in the cave. Meanwhile, stars overhead. Wait. Patiently. Immense and quietly humiliating. Wait. Patiently. Immense and quietly humiliating. The stars are the receipt. The stars are the proof that we aimed higher once. And that may be why this hurts so much. It is one thing to never know greatness was possible. It's another thing entirely to stand on the moon, test nuclear rockets, sketch orbital settlements, and then return to Earth to spend half a century arguing over who gets to choke an imported fuel first. That is a humiliation. That is the species insulting itself. And yet, I do not actually bring, I'm not interested in despair porn. I'm not interested in doom as entertainment or the black pill bullshit. I'm interested in diagnostics. Because diagnosis is the beginning of recovery. If people understand what was lost and how much, they might understand what still matters. Because the staircase is not gone. We didn't blow it up. It's there, waiting. We stepped off of it. We didn't destroy it. And thank God for that. The atom still works. Engineering still works. Rail systems still work. Machine tools still work. Our brains still work. If you let it. Space is still there. The stars await. The human mind is still capable of discipline, awe, and construction to make it there. To finish that staircase. Even now, nuclear still provides a substantial share of the United States electricity, and federal fusion planning is still aimed at moving towards commercial fusion in the coming decades if we push hard enough for it and make it an issue. That doesn't erase the lost time, though. and the lost opportunities, the blown bridges to peace by avoiding scarcity. But it does prove the frontier is not dead. The question is whether we're still capable of wanting the higher road badly enough. Not that, can we invent things? Yes, obviously we can. And it's not, can we make memes about collapse? Unfortunately, yes. We are the world champions at that. The real question is, can we recover civilizational seriousness? Can we worry about the future in a way that matters? Can we decide that sovereignty means something tangible again as a project together? Can we decide that energy abundance is not a luxury, not a partisan badge, but a foundation of the human future? Can we stop treating every long-range project like a eccentric hobby and start treating it like species maintenance? Can we build a society where people are not disposable anymore? Where work is tied to actual construction? Where the young are invited into a mission larger than content consumption and ideological trench warfare and wage slavery? Because if the answer is no, then yes, the cave wins and swallows us whole. The cave always wins if people lose their appetite for the staircase and the light. And I don't want that. Do you want that? I don't believe that's our destiny unless we accept it. I think what is happening now with job stress, the oil stress, the geopolitical stress, spiritual stress, is a kind of brutal unveiling. The old architecture is showing its cracks. Good, I say. Good. Let the cracks show. Let people see what dependency really looks like. Let people see what hollowed out sovereignty really looks like. Let them see what it means when a society can finance fantasy and cartoons, movies, but not a real foundation that anybody can go to work at. Let people see the difference between managing symptoms and building real futures you can stand on. Because maybe this is what it takes. Maybe people do not turn until the old road becomes obviously intolerable. Maybe people don't reach upward until the cave starts collapsing and rocks start falling on us all. That's a terrible way to learn. But human beings do seem to enjoy by touching the stove with both hands and then writing a think piece about it, thermal discomfort. So where does that leave us? It leaves us needing a new cultural spine. Not a new slogan, not a new panic cycle, not a set of cave murals, a spine, something we can stand for. A civilizational orientation that says we choose firm power over brittle dependency. We choose industrial depth over hollow convenience. Electrified resilience over perpetual fuel vulnerability. We choose a frontier building over permanent provoking each other. We choose a future where we build trains that don't require fossil fuels. We make the republic materially real again. Because it's just an idea floating on a bunch of potholes and falling bridges. We can choose the stars not as escapism, but as a natural extension of a species that refuses to feed forever on fear and scarcity. And that's not just a childish Star Trek dream. That is adulthood. That is stewardship. War over oil is childish and so last century. A civilization with nuclear power acting like it has no way out and that we must do this and must do that, that's childish. That's idiotic. That's blind. A species that can split the atom but cannot govern its appetite is childish. The mature move was to build beyond the trap. And yes, this has to connect right back down to ordinary people. Because civilization is not saved by abstractions. It's saved when real people can work, build, repair, raise families, get trained, get housed, get fed, and know that their effort is going somewhere worthy. If people cannot find decent work, then the national mission is broken. We're just waiting around robots to take our jobs, take care of us. If families are one missed payment away from living in a bus, the national mission is broken. If we can fund endless dependency but not productive sovereignty, the national mission is broken. And I think that's honest. And honesty is overdue. The old story is dead. The story that says we can just keep outsourcing the guts of our civilization, keep running transport on fragile energy consumption, keep letting long-term science starve and die, keep turning citizens into anxious consumers, and somehow remain strong. That story is dead as fuck. Good. I say let it die. Let it die. And in its place, let something sterner emerge. A people who remembers what was lost and they're mad about it. A people who can grieve without collapsing into panic, but build. A people who can study the missed branch of history and say, we're not wrong to want that future. We were wrong to walk away from it. That is where I think we are. Standing at the base of a staircase we stepped off of a long time ago, covered in cave dust, dizzy from fumes from all the oil, surrounded by noise and screaming political arguments, still carrying somewhere in our bones the memory that we were meant to climb. And that memory matters now more than ever. Because as long as that memory survives, the future is not fully closed. And if enough people remember, go back and recover, rediscover, really remember what we had, what kind of civilization could have been built and still could be built in some form today, then maybe this whole era of disappointment will not have only been loss. Maybe it will be the humiliation that taught us to stand up again. Maybe it will be the point where we finally stop confusing survival inside the cave with life itself. Maybe it will be the point where we choose once more to build a civilization worthy of the atom that we came from. We are stardust. We come from the exploded guts of the sacrificial stars that formed into helium and carbon, nitrogen, calcium. Maybe we could build a civilization worthy of that, worthy of the moon, worthy of our children, worthy of the stars themselves. That is the hope. Not soft hope, not Hallmark card hope, not even everything's going to be okay kind of hope. Hard hope. The kind of hope that looks directly at the wreckage and says, I see what I lost here. I see who benefited from our loss. I'm calling them out. We see the trap. We see the cave. We see the rocks falling. And we choose to step back on the stairway to heaven. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you have a wonderful night.